Hello and welcome to Weird Around Illinois. Today we're going to talk about an old cryptid friend we haven't talked about for a while, Mothman. While Mothman is probably most famous for his appearances in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, as we've talked about before, he is becoming quite common in Illinois, specifically in the Chicago area, since 2017. Being Weird Around Illinois, we thought this would be a good time to share with you some facts that you may not know about Mothman. Let's get weird.
So starting off, Mothman was actually going to get the title of Batman, but that's already almost a comic thing, so it kind of seemed too cheesy to put his name as Batman. So the second best option ended up being Mothman.
Yeah, and this was right when the Batman TV series was coming out, I think, in the mid-60s, and it was popular, and the comic was popular. Now, Batman had an enemy called the Killer Moth, and I'm not sure exactly when that came out, but there's some sort of influence there, whether the Mothman sightings caused them to create the Killer Moth as a bad guy, or whether the Killer Moth somehow influenced the Mothman name, but there's definitely a strong link between Batman and Mothman.
Yeah.
So the next thing on our list is the size. So Mothman is generally like around 6 to 8 feet tall. So he's about the size of like a regular human.
Yeah, I've heard people describe him as being like a thin, muscular human. Speaking of his size, he's also got some pretty big wings. He has a wingspan of 10 to 14 feet, depending on, who reports them. And the wings are supposed to be leathery. I don't know how they know that without touching them. Also, the thing that kind of surprised me is most people report Mothman as having white wings, which I guess is, it also leads to the name Mothman instead of Batman. But the body of Mothman is always described as being really dark. So I was kind of surprised to hear that so many eyewitness accounts had him with white wings.
Yeah, and I never realized that they have white wings. It's really odd.
At least that kind of explains the whole thing about people claiming that Mothman sightings are actually sandhill cranes. Because sandhill cranes have white wings, I believe. And up until this moment, I had no idea how any sane person could mistake a crane for Mothman. But now it's kind of making sense.
You have to be a tall one, though.
Yeah, definitely.
And a lot of people say that they're muscular, like you said, and that they look like humans. So again, that would be quite a weird distinction.
Right.
And most of these sightings, they're just kind of overwhelmed by those wings. But people are also overwhelmed by their Mothman's big, large, red, glowing eyes. Yeah.
Now those, I'm a lot of the naysayers will try to push that off as eye shine. That eyes glow red on most animals when you shine a light on them, or some animals at least. They also claim that the barred owl has eyes that shine red, and they could easily be mistaken for Mothman. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there's a pretty large size differential between a barred owl and a 7-foot tall man-like moth creature. But
yeah, I mean, the only argument someone can make is if it was on top of a tree. But if it was like a road sighting or something like that on a pole, you can't just mistake that.
I suppose the eyes are probably the easiest way to find Mothman, especially if you're looking high and you see two red eyes staring back at you. Again, could be a barred owl, but if they're really, really big eyes attached to a really, really big body, I think it's a safe bet you might be looking at Mothman.
Yeah, I think the next thing that's on our list, these Mothman creatures, I think tend to be on top of bridges and rooftops. One reason why a lot of people can see them at once, probably.
Yeah,
because they're so high and they're probably near light.
Yeah, I know we investigated a report of one on a light pole once, and we heard about those reports of them being on the rooftops around O'Hare. Of course, the bridges. He was seen on the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant before the collapse. He was seen on a bridge in Minnesota, a bridge in Wisconsin. What's interesting, and again, this kind of destroys the barred owl theory, I don't know of a lot of Mothman sightings in trees.
No, I've never heard of a like forest report.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only heard of like a flying Mothman, or sorry, flying Dogman in a tree.
Oh yeah, yeah. The one in Elk Grove
Cemetery. Yeah.
Yeah, there were Mothman sightings in natural formations on Mount Tremplow, but I don't think they were trees. I think he was like perched on rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
So another thing worthy of note about Mothman that you may not realize, he is incredibly fast. The first couple to report Mothman in Point Pleasant, they actually were in a car, and when they saw Mothman, they did what most people would do and tried to get the heck out of there. And Mothman chased them, and they claimed they got their car over 100 miles an hour, and Mothman was still keeping up with them.
Wow.
Was that flying or?
Yeah, that was flying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't hear a lot about Mothman moving on the ground. Sounds
No.
like he just kind of flies.
Flies and maybe makes a couple stops.
Yeah.
The next idea is that Mothman is like the bringer of doom, really. I mean, with the Silver Bridge incident, many say that he may have like caused it in some way. Some may say that he's actually like the direct opposite, kind of a person that saved some lives. But for the most part, people say that Mothman was involved in the disaster in general.
Yeah, whether he's helping or causing the disaster, whether he's trying to prevent it, trying to warn us, trying to cause it, he's always associated with doom. Those bridges that I mentioned in Wisconsin and Minnesota, those bridges collapsed after the Mothman sighting. Now, yeah, this could be one of those, hindsight is 20/20 things where people look back and, oh yeah, there was a Mothman sighting here before this bridge collapsed. We just forgot to mention it. It's equally possible that someone did spot the Mothman and reported it, and the bridge collapsed shortly afterward.
I wonder what's going to happen in Chicago, or what has happened.
Yeah, it's really frightening when you think about it, because there were a dozen sightings maybe in Point Pleasant before the bridge came down, and we're talking literally hundreds of Mothman sightings in the Chicago area since 2017.
Yeah.
So that would lead you to believe that if he is the harbinger of doom, then something really bad is coming to Chicago pretty soon. I want to think about moving now that I think about it.
The next thing about Mothman is that he has like a very loud screech, or at least according to several reports.
I've definitely heard that. Certainly in the first report, they talked about the screech. Even while he was pursuing them, he was screeching. I'm wondering, I thought I heard somewhere about the screech having almost that infrasound quality that we talk about with Dogman and Bigfoot, where it can like paralyze people with fear.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And people get paralyzed. It's like a sound that people don't recognize from any other animal. Just only Mothman.
Yeah, I kind of picture almost like a pterodactyl screech when I think of it, but it's probably because that's what I've seen on all the recreations.
Yeah, if it's a high-pitched kind of thing, there is a chance that could be mistaken for some kind of bird or some other animal, but I mean, if it's something way off.
I guess that would be another way to recognize Mothman. Listen for the screech.
Yeah.
So, one thing that has come out a lot since the Illinois sightings, but when you go back, there was even some of it involved with the West Virginia sightings. Mothman is often seen in conjunction with UFOs. It kind of got swept under the rug, but there were a lot of UFO sightings in West Virginia before and after the Mothman sightings and bridge disaster in Point Pleasant. So, I guess it shouldn't be surprising to us that in Illinois we've got, a lot of kind of mixed sightings where people see Mothman, they see a UFO, they see Mothman coming from a UFO, they see Mothman under a UFO. They see Mothman playing badminton with a couple of aliens, whatever. There's just a really strong connection.
Yeah, and I think we've probably seen a lot of this like around O'Hare.
Yeah.
There tends to be a lot of UFOs around there.
True.
And we also see like Mothman sightings like right next to them.
Right. Also kind of related to this is the Men in Black appearances. After all the Mothman and UFO sightings in Point Pleasant, there were a lot of sightings of the Men in Black showing up, asking people questions. I haven't heard as much of that in Illinois, but whatever's going to happen in Illinois may not have happened yet.
The final fact that you may not have known about is that Mothman's eyes that we talked about earlier can actually really hypnotize you. Now, as we talked about not too long ago in this video, actually, you can be almost left in a shocked state. Whether it be the screech, the eyes, it can be both. I mean, you can't know for sure. But the main thing that I've seen is Mothman's eyes, once you stare into them, you can actually faint and just lose all consciousness for a while. One that got caught on tape was like Mount of Monsters. That one was very entertaining, I can't lie. But yeah, I was very interested about that.
Yeah, I have a lot of doubts about that show. But
yeah, it's pretty wild.
But yeah, you never know what people can see like with Mothman and how it could affect them just looking into their eyes.
And if he's truly hypnotizing people, then how much credibility can we give their accounts? Yeah, that's the other question. I mean, like the couple I keep talking about in West Virginia. If they stared into the eyes of the Mothman and he planted thoughts in their head, what if there never was a chase? What if they never actually took off and ran from him? What if he just hypnotized them to believe that he can fly at 100 miles an hour?
That's a good point. That could also lead to the idea that they were just overwhelmed, and just that was their brain putting the thoughts into there. It's just none of it really happened.
Yeah, I mean, for that matter, how do we even know there was a Mothman? How do we know that it wasn't just some dude, with a glowing red, hypno device or something that hypnotized people into doing something or, getting information from them and then implanted this whole idea of the Mothman afterwards to cover his tracks?
Yeah, or a UFO using a device connected to that.
Yeah, or the Men in Black. As soon as you introduce hypnotism to this, suddenly the possibilities expand rather dramatically. But those are our 10 facts about Mothman that you may or may not have known already. If we're missing some facts, we'd love to hear about them from you. If you like our list of facts, by all means, push the like button. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And as always, thank you for listening, thank you for subscribing, and please tell your friends.